Hi, I'm Fabi Martinez, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something that is oftentimes misunderstood about stitch files and our Hatch embroidery software program. The first thing that I want to address is that you can see that I've got a design on the screen. It's a big monogram, and it's got some additional little a flower made with some fancy fills sort of things on it right here. I'm mainly going to address the issue about the letter itself because a question came up on our group on Facebook about a person who wanted to be able to alter the width of a design file that he had purchased on. It was a letter, and the stitches were too short for his liking. He wanted this section, for example, to be a little bit wider. This is not the original file that the person was referring to. This is just something that I have in my own files. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that in the program, under our software settings tab, we have this embroidery settings tab underneath it that we should select. And whenever we are dealing with a stitch file, we are typically going to be leaving the stitches as individual stitches. Okay, because when a person has sold us a design, they have not sold us the original object file. They have sold us a design that is simply stitches. And normally, we don't really want to play around with that design too much. Maybe we might want to resize it a little bit or change colors or something like that to a stitch file. But the more and more that we get involved in learning how to use a digitizing program, our imagination starts to kick in and we can look at a design and say, hey, I'd like to improve on that. So that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about this particular subject right now. So typically, like I said, we are going to leave the stitches as individual stitches. The question that we're going to be addressing is, if I leave these stitches as individual stitches when I open up my design, can I alter it? Can I make this satin line a little bit wider or a little bit narrower? The answer is yes, you absolutely can. And oftentimes people will tell us, no, you can't. But yes, you can. And I'm going to demonstrate that you can in just a few moments. But on the other hand, sometimes we might want to go ahead and have the program take a look at this design and try to analyze it and figure out, how did the original designer create this design? What are those objects? What do they look like? Can I change them? And in that case, we might want to play around and first of all start off by coming into this setting here and changing this so that it will convert the stitches into object shapes. All right, for right now, I've got two designs opened up on my program. I've got this one here. Right here is the one that we're looking at on the screen. And this one here, I had the program say to leave the stitches as individual stitches. And then I opened it up. And we're going to take a look at that in a few moments. When I opened up the design that's over here called design number 4, before I opened this letter up again, I came in here and I changed this so it would convert the stitches into objects. And we're going to see a difference between these two files. For right now, I'm going to leave the stitches because I'm not going to open up anything new right now for this little video. And I'm just going to close that screen down. All right, so this one was opened up as stitches. We're mainly going to be looking at this letter L. If I look at this letter L, we're going to see right now that if I go in between objects and colors, it doesn't change. All we've got is this big blue letter L. It's not giving us any information about it. But if I select it, and this is how I'm going to show you that yes, indeed, you can change this if you want to. We're looking at this in True View mode. If I turn off True View and we're looking at it stitches, everything's going to look bright pink. That's the color I have selected for my program here. If I come up to the reshape, we're going to see that we've got a million little turquoise squares. All of these are the stitches that make up this design. Can I move these stitches and change the width of this? Yes, I can. I can do it one by one if I wanted to. I could just come with my mouse, click over a little stitch, it will turn purple. I can drag it and I can make it shorter. Let's look at it in the regular stitch mode. Or I could even make it shorter, right? I can change that as much as I want to. All right. Another easier way that I could probably do that is I could use my mouse and drag a box around a whole big clump of them. They all turn purple. I can hover over it and I can drag it and make all of those stitches wider. Now, I'm going to just warn you that if you were to do this, it's going to take you a good amount of time, and You may not want to spend that amount of time fixing this design that way, but yes, it can be done that way. All right, I'm now going to show you another little trick. I'm just going to be doing a bunch of undos here. I was hitting the wrong button. All right, got it back to where it was at originally. Another thing I can do with it here in the program is I can select just this little portion, the letter L, come up to the edit on the toolbox up here, this toolbar. I can come down to recognize the stitches. And when I do that, we're going to take a look at what happens here when we look at the objects. Now we can see the letter L has been broken up into lots of bits and pieces. We've got travel lines. We've got what possibly could be underlay, or maybe it's the satin fill that's on top of here. If it's a fill, I could come to object properties and I can see that it's a satin, and I could change some of these things, right, in my stitch settings. If I keep this little section of this letter selected and come up to the reshape tool, something very different from what we saw a little while ago. Now we've actually got nodes. We've got angle lines. We've got square nodes and round nodes. Once again, if I wanted to, I could come in, I could select them and they'll turn purple. I can drag them and I can move them wider, narrower, change the shape as much as I wanted to, simply by having come up to the edit and having that section of having this design turned into recognize these stitches as objects. All right, I'm going to undo. What I'm going to do next is going to come all the way back to undo so that this is now just a stitch file. I'm going to show you design number 4. Design number 4 is the same letter, but this time when I opened it up, I had the program immediately convert all those stitches into objects. And if I scroll down here, and if we were to have this on the same page and compare how it converted those stitches into object, we're going to see that it's probably almost identical to what was in this design over here. All right, once again, we can select that object, we can reshape it. You're going to see that you've got those same little tools so that you can adjust all of these nodes and do whatever you want with them. All right, be really careful when you do this that you make sure that you are measuring your stitches and that they're not too long to actually stitch out and wear well. Now I want to show you one other thing while we're here before I end up this video. It looks like it did a pretty good job recognizing the stitches for that big letter. But let's take a look at what it might have done with something else that's on here. I wanted to look at this. So if I select this flower, it looks like this is done with a contour fill or something. And if I hit the reshape tool here, see the program didn't do a good job recognizing that flower. It was only able to still keep all of those objects as stitches. So, depending on the program that this was originally made in, it could have been any multitude of programs that are out there for sale. Um, your program may do better about analyzing and converting some of those stitches into objects. So this is Fabi Martinez, and I hope that this explanation that I have given to you about using a stitch file and changing it into objects so that you can make it a little bit more to your liking was helpful. Look at how this thing is just kind of stuttering along here. Isn't that funny? Yeah, when the program is wanting to look at a stitch file, sometimes it gets a little bit burdened down. Anyway, that is it about converting stitches into objects. Remember, start off in your software setting right off the bat from what you would really like the program to do for you before you open up your stitch files. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.